Hey everybody, Mike Sullivan with Born to Shine. Today we have an awesome guest. Her name is Elizabeth McCracken. She's the Director of Curriculum over at a school district in Grandview, Missouri.
That's
And
correct.
it's Grandview C4. That's the district. And you know what, Elizabeth, thank you so much for being with us today. Really appreciate you carving out some time for us.
My pleasure. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
So when you were going along your journey, because the director of curriculum, that's a really big position. I think you have 10 schools. I think we were chatting a little bit before. And so of those 10 schools, that's a really big honor. That's a big responsibility. You have a lot of kiddos and students you're, guiding and supporting. Now, what was your journey like to become the director of curriculum there? Because that's a big deal.
Thank you. So I've been in education for 26. This is my 26th year
Oh,
in
wow.
education. And I started out as a classroom teacher. I've always wanted to be a teacher, come from a long line of teachers in my family. And I just wanted to impact the world. That's why I went into education. I wanted to make the lives of kids as successful as possible so that they could be successful, productive, happy adults. And so I was in the classroom for 14 years. I've taught at a number of districts around the Kansas City area and around Missouri. I've taught in one private school, but the rest were all public. I've done inner city, urban, suburban, and rural,
Oh,
big
wow.
districts, small districts. So I've had pretty much a taste of everything that I could for the most part, which is part of what makes me so happy with the work that I do is I know that there's lots of different ways that kids get through school and parents get their kids through school. And I feel like my experiences have been very broad. At one point, after I'd been teaching for a number of years, I was living in southwest Missouri, down by Joplin, a little town called Carthage. They pulled me out of the classroom to create a coaching model, what we call instructional coaching, where it's a classroom teacher that doesn't have students, but they support teachers on best practices and how to be their most successful. Kind of under that philosophy that everyone needs a coach, everyone deserves a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that down in Carthage, Missouri for a number of years and taught at Missouri Southern State University and Missouri State University. Life changed for me a little bit right after the tornado that went through Joplin, and I moved back home to the Kansas City area, where I then was an instructional specialist for the Independent School District, which was my hometown, where I had grown up and graduated an alumni. So I was there. As an instructional specialist, I was also given the role of elementary curriculum coordinator. At that point, I realized that all of my studying and all of my passion was helping me with even more students, because if I'm impacting principals and teachers on such a large scale, then I'm effectively impacting students on a large scale. And so when an opportunity arose for me to come over to the Grandview C4 district as the director of PK-12 curriculum instruction and assessment, I jumped at that chance because it really helped me kind of fulfill this dream of really making school successful for everyone.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. And that's so neat. And I've heard that, Elizabeth, from quite a few directors of curriculum, just like you. They had a real similar path, was teaching, and then they wanted to kind of have that reach expand. And so from teaching in different settings like you have, and then to go on the district level, so now you're helping to reach the principals and all the schools. So instead of the one school. So that's really cool. And you're back in your hometown. So that's kind of cool too.
For sure.
Now, when you were a kiddo, K through 12, was there anything that you struggled with in school? Like for me, I was bullied, I had OCD, and that exacerbated my anxiety and the depression. And I just thought, what is going on? And this was just, third grade for me. So I was just a little kid. And those were pretty big feelings to tackle. But if you're comfortable, Elizabeth, our guests would love to hear if there's something that maybe you went through and who helped you through that.
Sure. So growing up, while I, for the most part, always stayed in the same area of the city in Independence, I was never in public school. My mom always had me in a private school, but I ended up changing schools every couple of years, and so it was only through my church that I could say I've had like lifelong friends. But as kind of an extroverted person, having to change schools so often did make me pretty good at making friends. I had to learn to do that pretty quickly and easily. I think an unfortunate side effect of having to make friends so quickly and always feeling like the outsider was that I became very concerned about being accepted and feeling like I had to morph who I am in order to be accepted, or pretending to be something that I'm not. So I did struggle with being my authentic self and making sure that I was true to who I was. I've also suffered from anxiety since a child. We did not know that's what it was. Did not get identified until I went to college. And so I do a lot better with my anxiety now. And it helped once it was identified, but there were times all through childhood that I just felt like my body was electric, or like my arms were like I just couldn't stretch them enough, just to, like, they were just electrified, and my brain would race, and it was sometimes trouble sleeping at night because my brain just couldn't shut off. And so that only kind of builds upon, well, maybe I'm a fraud, or maybe I'm an imposter. And so while I should not have had self-esteem issues, I did. And so sometimes, in my more formative years, I could tend to be swayed to take risks that I knew I shouldn't take, or to do activities that I probably had no business, even being in the vicinity, just because of this internal struggle that I was having about with my anxiety and with my lack of connection. The place I found the most connection in my childhood was through my church, and through church groups, youth groups, spending time, just kind of getting that recentering and being around people that really just care about me, and I care about them, but not because we're trying to be, cool in the hall or whatever, and with a common focus. And so that really helped me a lot through elementary, junior high, and high school. But I probably came into my own the most during college and right after college, when I could just be and not feel like I was always trying to impress. somebody else. So I think that that's, the advice that I always tried to give my students was, who are you? Who do you want to be? How do you want people to see you, so that you know who you are? And when situations get difficult, with pressures and from peers or from adults, you can always go back to, well, I know who I am. I know what I believe. I know, I like the person that I am. And so, besides just teaching them content, I also tried to instill my students with that ability to rethink, okay, who am I, and am I behaving in a way that, or am I showing the world who I authentically am?
I love that, Elizabeth. That was beautiful. That was amazing. So in addition to content, you're really helping them develop their character. So, which is so critical and just for their scholastic life, for their life outside of school, for in the workforce, and getting along with others, and their um, empathy skills, resiliency, just working, even just within themselves. That's where it all starts. And I love how you got your support from your church, and that's incredible. And you said something that actually made me think of Rick Warren, because I listen to his podcast in the morning. It's Daily Hope, and he's a pastor of a church out in California. I know this is kind of side note, but it kind of pulls back to what you said when you ask your students, well, who are you? I want you to think about, who are you, and focus on that. Who's the real you, the authentic you, the person that you know who you are, and that you want them to love and embrace themselves. And that's so beautiful. And that made me think of Rick Warren when he's saying, well, ask yourself, who are you? Focus on that, just like you're doing with your kids. And then he said, and remember whose you are, and that was really cool. It's like, because you were saying that the people in the church, you had a common focus, which was God, right? So, and so it was really neat when you said you're encouraging your students to focus on who are you. So if I was one of your students, I'd be thinking, well, who am I? That's right. Okay, I need to listen to Miss McCracken. She asked me, who am I? So if anyone's out there listening, and if you're struggling like I have, or like Elizabeth has, or pretty much everybody, right? We all do. So let's just be honest. So if there's anyone out there, a student, a parent, even admin, right? We're all people. We all struggle with things. So if anyone is listening and they're struggling with maybe imposter syndrome, or authenticity, or anxiety, or depression, or whatever it is, first, it's okay. And second, let's take Elizabeth's advice and just really center on asking ourselves, who am I? Right? That's what you ask your students. Who are you? And then what was the second part of that again? It was so good. Asking them who they are.
And who do you want to be? And how do you want the world to see you?
Perfect. Love that. That's so awesome. That's beautiful. Who are you, and who do you want the world to see you? How do you want the world to see you? And to be your true authentic self. And you know what? I'm totally with you. I felt all the electric stuff, and not being able to stretch, and like my brain is electric. I'm like, what is happening? Right? The anxiety, all the stuff that happens. So if any of you are feeling that too, that's okay. And there's people you can chat with. There's a school counselor, there's counselors outside of school, there's just some trusted adult that you feel comfy with, whoever that is, probably the school counselor, and go talk to her or him. And and if that works, great. And if you want some extra support, that's totally cool. No shame in it. All kinds of people, basically all of us, have something that we struggle with. And so just getting the convo started, that's the key. And there's no shame. Everyone needs a coach. You mentioned that early, Elizabeth. You were talking about everyone needs a coach. Tiger Woods, one of the best golfers, has a coach. Kelly Slater, best surfer ever of all times. They call him the GOAT, greatest of all times. He has a coach. Everyone has a coach. All the figure skaters, they all have coaches. Everyone. So why not have a coach to help us with what's going on inside? It's kind of important. So Yeah, love that. And then, what's working well within your district, C4, to support your kiddos with their emotional and mental health?
So in the last few years, we've actually, even pre-pandemic, we had started putting behavior resource specialists in all of our buildings,
Hmm.
so that children weren't always just in trouble for behaviors or emotions. Sometimes our behaviors or emotions get a little bigger than we'd like them to, um, because we don't have the skill set for how to respond appropriately, or whatever,
Hmm.
socially appropriately. And so we are now doing not just specific lessons with individual or groups of students, but or just as needed, but even targeted lessons in the classrooms on what is, when you're starting to feel this, what's an appropriate response.
Mm.
So we're starting to teach replacement behaviors, or
Right.
acceptable behaviors for when those emotions are getting the better of us, and sometimes even just recognizing when those emotions are coming, or when our big feelings are coming. What can you do so that you don't have an issue with a classmate or with an adult? And that's really also helped some of the adults, because through the pandemic, I'm not certain that the pandemic necessarily caused a lot of our social or emotional issues. I think they just put a big spotlight on them. I
Right.
think we've had them for a while. Same with our academic issues. I don't think we have this big fallout that sometimes is portrayed. It just spotlighted it and made us so much more aware of how important our connections are to each other, and that students will learn best when we are deeply and authentically connected, and have those relationships with each other. And so that has been a major focus. We have a district counselor that we pull in, several resources around our community, like cornerstones of care, and different community resources that come in, so that whenever there's an important issue, like maybe the building or a grade level has had a, a a teacher or a classmate pass away for whatever reason, or
Mm.
we can kind of wrap around them and envelop them, and make sure that we can get them back to center, so that academics, when they're ready, can carry on, because it's something that I think probably for decades, um, a lot of times students act up in class because it's easier to be the class clown, or it's easier to be this is stupid, rather than just admitting I don't understand, or
Right.
I've got this gap in my education. They may not even have the skill set to be able to articulate to their teacher, well, I have moved several times, so I have a gap in my education in this area. So it's just easier to act out. And so we've been training our teachers, our counselors, our interventionists on recognizing the difference between acting out behavior, or it's a true behavioral intervention, versus maybe there's a deeper issue.
Mm.
And then providing resources, whichever it is, so that then we can get back to closing their academic gaps, or even propelling them to their fullest potential academically.
That's awesome that you're teaching your teachers how to differentiate between behaviors. So some may not be as simple as, oh, they're acting out. Well, let's dig a little deeper. They're probably acting out because there's probably stuff going on wherever, maybe at
Right.
home, maybe wherever it is. Maybe they, like you said, they've moved 4 or 5 times. Maybe they're just struggling. And so it's not really acting out, it's a cry for help. So
That's
that's
right.
so awesome that you're doing that. And I couldn't agree more with you, Elizabeth, that yes, the pandemic was hard on all of us. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But it's not the again, I was going to combine two words, cause and source. Course? Yeah, that would be so weird. So it's not the cause nor the source of kids struggling with their grades. It's not the cause or the source of kids struggling all of a sudden emotionally or behaviorally or mentally. It's not the cause, but you're right. It put a spotlight and it really opened our eyes as adults. Whoa, okay, our kids are really struggling. The struggle's real. And not only as admin or teachers or principals, but the whole country. And it's actually going global too, that people at all ages are struggling. But we used to always just think, kids are fine. They're resilient. They're tough. Well, yeah, but you can only stretch a rubber band so far before it snaps. So it's great that you are doing everything you can on a district level to support those kiddos and noticing those subtle nuances and differentiating between, okay, that's a normal behavior and let's explore that a little more. Let's support, and then, as you said, envelop those kiddos a little more and dive in a little deeper of, hey, well, why don't we just have a chat and just, how you feeling? How you doing? What's really going on? I get it. I've been there. Sometimes things stink. Are you going through any of that? Like, just creating that safe space. And it sounds like y'all are doing that. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
You're probably having a lot less, well, I guess, blowouts, some schools call them, where it's like a huge event, where you can capture it before things get really horrific.
That's correct. Our behavior data tracking is way down this year.
I bet.
And so, we've really found that being more proactive, well, like I like to say, proactive beats reactive
Absolutely.
100 out of 100 times. So helping our teachers in advance, helping our students in advance, and trying to be anticipatory of what's going on has definitely created an environment where our teachers are now they're back to really kind of grumbling about the curriculum again, which is so great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That will never change.
Yeah. Well, no, that's good. That's great because it's all about getting the convo started, having that connection, like you said, and giving them, most importantly, the tools that they need. Because if they don't have the skill set, like you said, then there's nothing to help them with. So giving the kids the tools, the skills to replacement behaviors, like you were saying. So for any adult or a kiddo, a student that's listening, whoever's listening, let's say for me, I'll give a humble example. I'm trying to quit coffee because I know it's not good for me. I love coffee. I love sugar. My grandma gave me a sweet tooth. I love ice cream and donuts and croissants and but I know I'm not supposed to eat it, right? Because the acid reflux, not good. You eat all that stuff, it just comes back up. So replacement, like you're saying, Elizabeth, right? Instead of coffee, now I'm having tea, trying not to put the sugar in it. So that's the replacement. So maybe if you're a student and you're struggling with, let's just say whatever it is, just being like too cool for school, and you go, I don't know this. Well, maybe it's a replacement of, I'm going to be the really cool kid and raise my hand and say, I didn't really understand that. Would you mind explaining that again? Or maybe just getting some extra help after class, or that's maybe the replacement. So, or, hey, I don't feel good. Well, instead of really sitting in that, like I did for many years and struggled, I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is. A good replacement or a good start is, well, maybe I'll actually talk about it. Maybe I'll go talk to my teacher and ask them what they recommend. Or maybe I'm scared, but I'm gonna trust that the school counselor is gonna help, because that's what they're there for. They love you, they want to help you, and that's why they're there. They're there for you. So that was just a side note. But okay, so is there anything else on your heart, Elizabeth, that you would like to share with our listeners? Anything maybe I missed to ask that you want to share?
Well, I think a byproduct of being someone with anxiety is my need to control, control freak. And so one of the biggest things that I have learned in the last 5 or so years is be still. And it comes out of a quote in the Bible, be still, know that I'm God. And, nowhere could I find in the Bible was worry about it, stress about it,
No.
try to control every situation.
Yeah.
But over and over and over is the notion of, I got this, be still, trust, faith.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I could wish anything for, children or even adults who maybe also struggle with the need to control
Mm-hmm.
and getting very upset when things feel like they're out of control, is that idea that control is an illusion. None of us have control of anything. And sometimes we like to tell kids the only thing you can control is yourself, when sometimes you can't even control yourself because of emotions or reactions. And so when life starts feeling heavy, or there's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, and the up times help you see the joy, and the down times help you appreciate the up. And when you're in your downtime, take a minute and just be still and try to figure out, what am I supposed to be learning from this? How can this down situation improve me, make me, what do I need to learn from this? How can I mitigate the possibility of something like this happening again? And so just that notion of being still. I have a kind of an anecdote or a way I like to explain it is a bow and arrow. And so if we think of God as like the archer,
Mm-hmm.
when you pull back the strings on the bow, the further back you pull it, the more tension, the more stress, the more difficult it is. So you want to be the arrow, because we definitely don't have the strength that God or the universe or whatever we want to call has to see where the aim is. We may think we know where we want to go, but we have to have faith that our being, our supreme being, knows it's designed for our success. And if we can just be very still as the arrow and let God pull us back as tough and stretch us as tight as he can, if we can just trust in that, as soon as it lets go, the aim will be true, the mark will be true, and you will be launched forward so much further and straighter than if you're trying to control it, because it's not going to be as straight or as true as if you did just be still.
Just be still, have faith that God's going to take whatever you're going through and turn it into good.
He's going to launch you forward.
Launch you forward a lot further than we could go if we're struggling and doing it on our own and trying to control it. I've done that. I'm guilty of that too. So that was such a beautiful, beautiful way to wrap this up, Elizabeth. Yeah, having faith, being still, and let God guide us instead of us trying to control everything. That's really beautiful.
Respond, don't react.
Yeah, love it. Elizabeth McCracken, thank you so much for being with us today.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Sullivan.